Hey, this is Pradeep with Sensatura, and today we are doing a comparison video of two fragrances from the house of Amouage, Royal Tobacco and Outlands. Though I have a clear preference between these two, I don't own bottles of either, which I will explain, apart from obviously comparing the way they smell, the wearing experience, pricing, and all that good stuff. So let's get into it. Oh yes, another commonality I will get out of the way. They are both composed by one of the most popular perfumers working today, Cecile Zorakian. In fact, my initial idea was to get a sample of the latest Creed, Oud Zorakian. Sorry, I mean Oud Zaria, and do kind of a triple threat. I like that she kind of took ownership of it, in spite of Creed trying to pull off their usual shenanigans. But it seems so hard to find a sample, and when I did, it costs like 25 euros plus shipping. So I thought better of it, we are just going with these two. First is Royal Tobacco from 2022. This is from their library collection. It is tagged as Opus 14. This collection has been a mixed bag for me. There were a couple I liked when they came out in those flask bottles. Opus 5 by Jacques Cavalier was this fascinating Middle Eastern twist on iris. Then there is Opus 12 Rose Incense by Bruno Jovanovic. It was this beautiful take on this inky rich incense coupled with rose. The collection has been revamped since. A lot of the newer additions, King Blue, Silver Oud, Reckless Leather, did not work as well for me. Anyway, coming back to Royal Tobacco, as per Renaud Salmon, the creative director, the inspiration behind this fragrance is to bring together the symbolic materials of Cuba and Oman, essentially East meets West type of thing, which is of course tobacco and incense. Essentially, to do a tobacco fragrance with an Amouage signature. The last one that came close to this was Journeyman, but then it was not a full-on tobacco composition. Coming to the smell itself, Royal Tobacco starts off with this dark, smoky, herbal smell. Lots of dry, warm, spicy, aromatic facets coming in, backed up by the smokiness of the birch tar. There is this prominent anisic, licorice, a touch cool, savory smell coming through. Now and then, it feels like nutty, toasted Asian spices. I think they even mentioned sesame seeds there. A little bit of a culinary spice bazaar happening initially. The dry, smoky, leathery tobacco also starts to come through. The tobacco itself is not as prominent as one would expect from the name. It is clearly there as a major note, but it's not as tobacco focused as some others in this family or category of fragrances. There's other things happening. As it dries down, the spiciness starts to mellow down, except for the anisic licorice accord which continues. It's almost like they took a stop in Africa between Cuba and Oman, taking in the spices along the journey. Now, this can easily get into an acquired taste territory, like Dior's Eau Noire, with which I can see some distant similarities. That one has a small, serious following, but it has not proved to be a wider success. The difference with this is that in spite of all these potentially divisive notes, it's constructed in a more approachable, modern, appealing way. That's why a lot of new audience came in at the time when these new slot of creations were launched. Obviously, it's also connected to the change in creative direction from Christopher Chong. Overall, I generally tend to prefer the earlier releases. Not that I unanimously loved everything under his direction. I had my picks. One just needs to look at his work at Thamin London. It speaks for itself. But these last 3 to 5 years have clearly taken a different direction. Nonetheless, as Royal Tobacco dries down, it becomes more resinous, balsamic. The incense and the woody aspects come in. The tobacco acquires this touch of dry, dusty, acrid character. Hints of dried fruits, maybe some vanilla adding a touch of sweetness. The licorice, aromatic, charred, spicy facets through line is still there, along with the birch. It almost feels black with sepia edges when I try to visualize it. Eventually, this parched, a touch leathery tobacco with an undercurrent of the resins and woods is how it settles down. It's a fairly strong fragrance, so reserved for more specific occasions. Ideal for cooler days, fall, winter, formal occasions. Comes across traditionally masculine leaning. In summary, I think it's competently constructed, feels different from the usual sweet cherry tobacco fragrances. The dry down still has that mature, ceremonial Amouage signature. It's just that there are some other tobacco fragrances that I prefer, especially for the price. Fumerie Turk, Vanilla Van, Tabak Tabu, to name a few. Plus the aromatic elements sometimes feel like cooking spices, herbs, tamarind sauce, and so forth. Kind of distracts me from the tobacco resinous side of the proceedings. And that's why I don't think I need a bottle. Let's look at Outlands next, going into the differences. This is from 2024, released as part of a trilogy of fragrances within their newest Essences collection. I did an impressions video of all three when they launched. There was Reasons representing the past, Luster the present, Outlands is supposed to represent the future. This has a more fancy backstory compared to Royal Tobacco. Apparently, the brand puts these fragrances through an aging process in oak barrels and also infuse them with sandalwood chips. It has become controversial amongst fragrance circles, especially for the high price tag. Based on the initial trilogy, I have come to the conclusion that they don't seem to be bringing any significant improvement. There is some dry, musty, woody nuances, but nothing more. I just consider it to be a part of marketing now. It seems to have done well for them, especially Outlands. A lot of people are buying it blind. I mentioned in the initial video, it has the markers of a commercial hit, and it seems like it has really taken off since. Now they are coming out with a handful of new additions to this collection. It will be interesting to see if these new creations have actually taken advantage of the aging process. Of course, Royal Tobacco does not undergo this process, at least yet. Maybe in the future there will be a barrel-aged version infused with real tobacco leaves. We will wait and see. Anyway, in terms of smell, Outlands starts sweet, spicy, surprisingly fresh with a prominent cardamom note. The darker notes already jump out: resins, incense, some smoky woodiness, and so forth. Not as dark or dry as Royal Tobacco, comparatively fresher with the help of candied lemon, citruses, geranium, and so forth. There's a lot going on initially. It's not totally the same as Royal Tobacco, but this also has that sort of bittersweet, licorice, anisic facet coming in. It's kind of the perfumer's signature, I reckon. Obviously, there is no tobacco in this whatsoever. You get hints of the dry amber, incense, balsamic facets, and so forth. In the dry down is where it loses me. Somehow, all those elements are overtaken by this piercing, sweet, sugary, ethyl maltol note backed by vanilla. There was patchouli mentioned, but this is the Mugler, Amen, Angel, sort of candied sweet patchouli, not the earthy, mossy, chocolate kind. Unlike Royal Tobacco, this one clearly seems to have designer sensibilities. Even some woody ambers seem to reveal themselves later. I have not experienced a scent that changes this drastically in some time. It is almost astonishing how much it changes in 30 minutes. I can see why it is so popular. Seems to move a lot of units. Sweet fragrances still sell. Influencers, TikTok circles seem to have already declared this a masterpiece. But it's simply not for me. In fact, it is my least favorite of the three essences. Even the aging, infusion, and whatnot could not seem to do much to turn it around. Or at least the other two essences seem to have taken some advantage of the aging because they are naturally constructed as woody scents. This just doesn't seem like a good fit. It comes across like Amouage tried to take a page out of Parfum de Marly and created this sweet concoction. And now Creed has made a version of this signature. So now you have three brands selling a similar scent profile. Like I said, I can still understand the appeal. It could be worn essentially anywhere, as long as it is not too hot, because the sweetness can get overwhelming. Outlands leans younger and unisex friendly in the traditional sense. It's also more expensive compared to Royal Tobacco. That one is also nowhere as sweet. It does not make me think of designer fragrances. It's dry, darker, still had the Amouage stamp to some extent, more consistent and engaging in the dry down, as well as in terms of the overall composition. So no surprise, out of the two, my clear pick is Royal Tobacco. Alright, so that's been my tale of two Amouage fragrances. And as always, thanks for watching, take care, and ciao.